like this, that's awesome. Because here's the thing, zombie survival, the CDC, anybody follow the CDC at all? What's CDC? What's CDC?
Control.
Close? What's so CDC? Anybody know what it stands for?
Control Disease Center. Or it's not.
Close.
Center of Disease Control.
Center for Disease Control. And we have our first trophy.
You just
I
smart.
remember it from
You,
Walking
sir.
Dead.
Get the zombie clown.
Yes.
There you go. Atta boy.
Now I'm just gonna crap out of my room.
That's the plan, actually. Yeah. Now listen, you can go to Tyson's and buy like exploding stuff that if you have high contact with it, it'll blow up. Don't do that. Just saying. Not a great idea.
Don't.
There's that. Okay. So she's running some copies for me. I was running a little late, so that's why I didn't get them. This packet is going to have a lot more detail about the things that I'm going to go over. Take it home, read it, do whatever you throw away, I don't care. But there's a lot of good info in here. So the question that I get most often is, do you believe in zombies? And my answer is, wait, you don't believe in zombies? Because the question, okay, are zombies real? Very simple question, are zombies real? Has three answers, yes, no, and not yet. So let's get into that. So the answer no, zombies are not real, is based on this. Zombies do not return from the dead. Zombies will not return from the dead. Physically speaking and biologically and scientifically speaking, it is very unlikely that zombies will ever come back from the grave. So in that respect, no, zombies aren't real, and they probably won't be. That being said, it's been fun. Thanks, guys. It'd be awesome if that was it. If I could be like, okay, no, that was good. We waited for that. Sorry. No, so in that respect, they're not. In fact, I have a really good quote here from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. It says, the CDC does not know of any virus or condition that would reanimate the living dead, or one that would present zombie-like symptoms. David Daigle, in an email to the Huffington Post, said that. Now, he said that in reaction to the Miami zombie. You guys hear about that last year?
Bat cells,
Yeah, bat cells guy, yeah. So, I have another quote here from Steve Schlossman, who I'll be quoting him a lot. He's the one that did the zombie autopsies book, and he's a Harvard professor. So his quote is, in the cold room at the university, we had a cadaver from which all the limbs had been amputated. Sometime early in the morning, it opened its eyes and began to move its trunk. It was dead, but it opened its eyes and tried to move. Wait, that was from Night of the Living Dead. Sorry, wrong quote. The other one was, no, this is what he actually said. That was all wrong. There will not be a zombie apocalypse. Many people shout boo when I say this at conventions. If anything, in the news this week, with real people suffering from real tragedy, it's a sign enough that we do not need to call something a zombie apocalypse for it to be awful. We are humans. We have plenty of ways to end our civilization without zombies. So that being said, the CDC did a thing where they were like, better safe than zombie. You need to prepare for the zombie apocalypse. The thought process behind it was, if you're ready for the zombie apocalypse, you're ready for anything. And that makes sense. H1N1 was a very real thing here in Iowa. We had people die from H1N1. I'm from Marshalltown, and in Marshalltown, I was very proud of how they responded. When H1N1 was going on, if you had a sneeze, you could not go into the hospital without wearing gloves, a mask, sanitary gown. It was ridiculous. But that's the level of infection that they were terrified of spreading, so they wanted to make sure that they were taking the precautions and the steps. So that's very important to keep that in mind. Whether the zombie apocalypse is going to happen or not, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that I'd rather take steps and make preparation plans for anything, because I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I have a wife, I have a dog, and I have a cat. The dog and cat are going to be zombie. Zom and bait. Like, that's it. They're gone. I don't care. Like, I love them, but when push comes to shove, they're going to be a furry hamburger. I don't care. I'm going to save my daughter. I'm going to save my wife. But the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I'm right, and that's why I do this. Now, the answer that they are not coming back from the dead is kind of a bummer, because the movie's really cool. Now, this is something a little bit different. This guy right here is Clervius Narcisse. Anybody know that name? Okay, here's a photograph of him, and entirely possible that it's the same photograph. Just an artist rendition. Still nobody? Okay, here's why. The answer, yes, because I said that there was no, yes, and not yet. Here's, zombies are real. They're very real. Yes, there are documented scientific cases of zombieism. Now I got people's attention. That's cool. Okay, how? Because in Haiti, there's a religion called voodoo. And voodoo actually gets a really bad rap. A lot of people are like, oh, voodoo dolls, and you know, there's chicken sacrifices and all that. I've studied voodoo. It's kind of what I do. You know, you gotta be knowledgeable about stuff if you're gonna talk about it. The thing about voodoo is it's based on Christianity and the African religion, hoodoo. And with voodoo, they believe in, like, I don't know if you guys ever follow Catholicism at all, but they believe that there are holy spirits called Loa. And there are Loas of everything. There's Loa of death and life and light and all this different stuff, right? And there's one called Baron Samedi. And Baron Samedi is the Loa of death. He's also, if you ever hear about Mardi Gras and stuff, there's all these guys that are in tuxes with top hats and they have a skull painting on their face. That's Baron Samedi, the Loa of death and partying. Now that being said, there are, in the Haitian religion, voodoo, zombieism is a big part of that. Basically, the entire premise of the Haitian religion and voodoo is that if you do something bad enough, they can go to a Bokor, or a Mamba. A Bokor is a male witch doctor, a Mamba is a female witch doctor. And they can actually bring it before a voodoo court, essentially, and say, I want this person turned into a zombie. A zombie is the worst punishment in voodoo. What happens is this Bokor will sacrifice a chicken, and they will chant, and they will use beats. It's very hush-hush, very quiet. And they'll have this huge ceremony. And then they will somehow put this spell on the victim. And a few hours later, the victim dies. And the victim is buried. And the victim is actually pronounced dead by a lot of legitimate medical doctors. And then they rise from the grave. And they're zombies. Now, Clerius Narcisse had this happen to him. His brother, he was an awful man, real jerk, man, like land grabber, greedy, rich as can be, and his family was suffering like crazy, wouldn't help him at all, wouldn't do anything for him. And Clerius was a complete jerk, like stealing his family's stuff. So his brother goes to a Bokor and says, listen, I need you to make this guy into a zombie. He's making my life hell. I want you to make him pay. Let's turn him into a zombie. So he goes home, gets mysteriously sick, and dies. And a modern hospital pronounces him dead. There's 3 doctors that inspected this guy and said he's dead. His sister came and identified the body and said, that's my brother. You know, all this sad stuff, right? And he was buried. And they had a wake for him, they had a funeral for him. And then, fast forward, 13 years later, this guy walks in to town. Barely able to remember his own name, but he remembers his name. And he goes to his sister. And he says, for the last 13 years, I've been a zombie on a plantation full of zombies. So they did dental records. They checked the dental records. And sure enough, it was the same guy. They went and they exhumed his grave. No body. So, when I say yes, zombies are real, and there is a documented case, at least one, there's actually 2, but I can't remember the other lady's name, so I didn't want to sound like an idiot. But with Clerius Narcisse, you can't forget that name. So, to answer your question on that, yeah, zombies are very real. So how did it happen? How, in a world like this, where most of us don't believe in black magic, we don't believe in voodoo, we don't believe in hexes and curses and that sort of thing. So how did this guy get legally pronounced dead, come back, and barely remember his own name, and be a completely different person, personality-wise? The answer is tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin is a very, very serious poison that's found in blowfish. And also, it was a mixture of that and a toxin found in frogs. And it's weird because if you go to Japan, tetrodotoxin and blowfish is a delicacy. The reason is you eat it and it has to be cooked perfectly, because if it's overcooked or undercooked, you die. You die! Hey, this is going to be an adventure. I'm going out for dinner. I loved you. It was fun. I'm going to go have some blowfish. I don't know, but I will tell you this. If you eat it, the reason it's such a delicacy is because if it's cooked just right, you get a weird weird buzz. Like, it's bizarre. It's a weird feeling. And people, the thing is, if it's not cooked right and it's not quite fatal, people lose chunks of their memory. So it's very bizarre. Now, apparently, the Bokors have figured out how to mix turkey blood and feathers and all this stuff with tetrodotoxin and this toxin from toads that makes you hallucinate. Slows down your vitals so much that it's not even detectable by an EKG. Slows down your breathing so much that it's barely detectable. And when you finally come to, you don't remember anything, and you're very susceptible to suggestion, much like hypnosis. So, basically what happened was this Bokor poisoned Clerius Narcisse, and then waited until after his funeral, dug him back up, and said, you're now a zombie, you're going to come work for me at this plantation. And this is how, scientifically, it's been proven. There's another book called The Serpent and the Rainbow. You familiar with that book? Yeah, Surfing the Rainbow. It was actually, it became a big movie too. And in your pamphlets there, I go into a little bit more detail about, I took a Wikipedia page actually, giving a little bit more detail about Clairview Strikes East and what happened to him. They sent, there was a big professor and he went down and he's like, okay, so I gotta figure this out. And he finally finds this Beaucourt mixture and he figures out that it's tetrodotoxin and this is how it happens. So, zombieism is real. It's very, very hush-hush in the Haitian culture, but they take it very, very seriously because to say that it's not real and then end up becoming a zombie would be very ironic, and nobody likes irony in the Haitian culture. I don't know if that's true or not. I think I made it up. So, excuse me. So, yes, zombies are very real. Now, as far as the not yet. Not yet is my favorite part because I can have a conversation with anybody that I meet and I can convince them that zombies are going to be real and that we will see the zombie apocalypse using modern science. That's a fun skill to have. Whether you believe in zombies or not right now, at the end of this seminar, this little lecture that I'm giving, you will be able to convince all of your friends that the zombie apocalypse is going to happen. Yeah, so that way, when it does happen, they'll be going, hey, I'm sorry, man. I know that I didn't believe you and I thought you were silly for, look, can I come in? And you'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you through my fortificated wall. So, my favorite book right now, and I have several books that I read. In fact, I will show you several of the books, and she has 3 of them back there. My favorite book right now is by a guy named Dr. Steve Schlossman. I mentioned him before. He's a Harvard psychologist. He wrote a book called The Zombie Autopsies. And in The Zombie, you said you read that one? Yeah, what did you think?
Pretty good.
It's very good, yeah. In the zombie, let me give you a little bit of. She did order some, so you guys can check this out too. George Romero. Who knows who George Romero is? Yes, he's the guy that directed Night of the Living Dead. Many say he's the father of the modern zombie. He says, "I've written and made films about zombies for over 40 years, and in that time, I've never been able to convince my audience that zombies actually exist." On page 1 of the Zombie Autopsy, Steve Schlossman takes away any doubt. This fast-moving, entertaining work will have you chuckling and worrying. Now, also, there was another guy we mentioned back there. Jonathan Marbury, he did Patient Zero, right? That book is back there too. He actually said, with Zombie Autopsies, Schlossman redefines weird science for the 21st century. Brilliant, bizarre, and wonderfully disturbing. So, if you have a Harvard psychologist who can figure out what in modern medicine what it would take to make a zombie, you know what you have? You have my attention. So I read this book cover to cover probably a dozen times. I love this book. Now, in it, he talks about prions. Anybody know what a prion is? Other than you read the book. No cheating. Actually, you can't answer because I haven't given you anything yet. You know? No, great. So he didn't read the book completely. No, excuse me. Prions are a protein. They're not living, they're not dead, but they act very living. What a prion does is it eats things. It eats brain cells, to be specific. The idea is that it will enter your bloodstream, get into your brain, and eat your frontal lobe. Now, it basically makes your brain like Swiss cheese. Anybody know anything about the brain and how it functions? Good. Okay. Do you know what the frontal lobe controls?
Isn't it your thinking?
Yes, it is your thinking. In fact, it's your thinking, but more specifically, it's your logic reasoning. That sort of thing, okay? It's what makes you who you are. You already got a poster. What am I doing? But I will give you this mint, and I'll explain why that's important later. Okay. So, he's very good at this. You guys really need to get in here. I'm going to give everybody prizes at the end anyway, but you don't know that yet. It gets rid of your deductive reasoning. If your frontal lobe is gone, like they used to do lobotomies way back in the day for people who had mental issues, they would take out parts of the frontal lobe to change people's personality. Now, it turns out they were destroying the brain past any repair whatsoever, but they didn't know that at the time because, science and medicine, that's fun. So what the prion does is it attacks the brain. The issue is, what is the cell? Is it white or red blood cells that attack any foreign body and help you to get stronger? White blood cells. Exactly. See, now you get good job. So white blood cells, that's what helps you to get stronger if you become ill. The problem with prions is that at first, white blood cells don't know what it is because it's not a living organism, it's just a protein. We have tons of proteins in our body. In fact, when we talk about the bug out bag, I'm going to say why proteins are important to have in your diet in the zombie apocalypse, right? So what could be so bad about this? Well, the kicker is when they finally realize that it's attacking the brain, when they try and attack it, the kicker about the prion is it has this weird shell coated over it. So when the white blood cell attaches itself to it to try and kill it, it pulls off part of the shell, and that shell grows back, and the prion just keeps going. So this has happened in reality. It's called mad cow disease. You guys remember hearing about that a while back? Yeah, mad cow disease. I don't want to mess with a mad cow, especially not a bull. That's not something I'm down for. So I didn't eat a lot of beef during that time. But with mad cow disease, the only way that you could get it, or you could get the prion, is through consuming meat or blood, having your blood or some kind of bodily fluid. That was the only way that you could consume this prion and get mad cow disease. There's also something called, I want to say it's Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or something like that. I know I'm saying that wrong, and it's actually in my pamphlet here, if I can find it. But anyway, the issue with the prions is that it attacks the frontal lobe, it eats the frontal lobe, but then it enlarges your oblongata. Who knows what that is? Come on, guys. It was in Waterboy. Or yeah, Waterboy. Yes. What is that? Do you know?
Isn't that the central nerve cortex?
Kind of. It's what makes you angry. It's what controls aggression. Okay. So it attacks the oblongata and it makes it larger. Okay. So you have no frontal lobe and you have a larger oblongata. So you have no deductive reasoning, no logic. You're not the person you were. You're always angry. Okay. Then it attacks the part of your brain that makes you hungry and tells you that you're full. Now, if you have something that doesn't know it's full, so it's always hungry, it's very aggressive, and has no personality, what's that sound like? Sounds like a zombie, yeah. So in Schlossman's book, he says, okay, now, worst case scenario, what would happen if somebody took that prion and scientifically, genetically, attached it to the influenza bug? Then you're all zombies now. That's what happens. If you have the cold, if you have the flu, you know how hard it is to beat that, right? It can be a pain, and it sucks. You're drooling all over yourself, and you feel like garbage. Well, imagine if that was the zombie plague, and all I got to do is cough in the same room as you. Yeah, that's scary stuff, right? And honestly, right now we're very lucky because prions only attack cattle for the most part, and the kicker about it is that it's non-reversible if it happens. So yeah. And nobody has really mixed it with influenza yet, so that's a good thing. But I'm just kind of scared because there's mad scientists out there who like to play God and mess with stuff, and that's not a good idea. Because then you have the zombie autopsies plague. I own this. You can get these on the internet. I got it because for my day job, I'm the manager of a GameStop, and I went to a conference, and I waited in line for 45 minutes answering the same 4 questions until I got it. This is pretty cool. And it's specifically because of this prion bug that I have this. This is a Russian military-grade gas mask. It's functional. It works. Now, the reason that I have this is because the zombie virus, I'm hoping won't be airborne. I'm not going to take that risk. If it is airborne, I'm going to make sure I've got myself literally covered. Because the thing is, the SWAT team could come in here right now and throw in tear gas, and I could throw this thing on, and I'd be fine. You guys would be crying like babies, but I'd be laughing in here because I'm kind of a jerk on that.
You can't hear me at all, right? Barely? Because I feel like I'm screaming.
So it's kind of hot in there, and it's hard to communicate in there. So this is one of those things that you're going to want to make sure you have or something similar, because you never know what could be in the air. So that is prions, and to me, that's the most scientifically plausible, most realistic way that a zombie could happen. However, that's the tip of the iceberg, kids. I hope you guys are strapped in, because there's more out there. Creepy stuff. Who here plays video games? Nice. Okay, cool. Who here has PlayStation 3? One guy. Dude, I'm sorry. Okay, so
Xbox also.
here's why I asked. PlayStation 3 just put out a game called The Last of Us. Yeah, I know. I actually know, working at GameStop, I know 8 people, and that's not an exaggeration, 8 people who bought a PlayStation 3 specifically for The Last of Us.
I played on it, but then they're coming out with PS4.
I know. So check this out. Here's the deal with The Last of Us. The reason The Last of Us had me intrigued is because it took actual science and said, this is the zombie apocalypse. It's not really zombie though. So we talked about prions may cause zombies. We talked a little bit about that stuff, right? That's to me, that's the most realistic. So I probably in retrospect should have finished with that one, but I'm going to go in backwards here. This little guy right here is called Naegleria florii, or N. florii, okay? Fowleri, if you will. What this is and this is actually, again, here we'll go with a quote from the Center for Disease Control, CDC. Naegleria fowleri is a free-living amoeba commonly found in the environment in water and soil. Infections in humans is rare but serious. The risk for infection from this might be reduced by measures that minimize opportunities for water to enter the nose and when using fresh water or lake or rivers. Now, here's the deal, guys. Amoebas. So I've already told you, we've got prions, now we've got amoebas. You guys know anything about amoebas? Tiny. You can't see these things. You can't see prions, but you can't see these things either. It's everywhere. Now, this amoeba has affected only 144 people worldwide, but has an extremely high mortality rate with only 6 recorded survivors. Statistically speaking, that means none of us would survive. That's kind of scary. It's science. It's real. Now, the brain is the most importantly, possibly the most protected part of the body. It's protected from physical harm by the skull, parasitic and viral harm through other natural defenses, including the spinal column, that sort of thing. But here's the thing. This fowleri enters your body through water. So say you go swimming at the beach, and this is in, which by the way, just so you know, it's only found really in Africa, so you're fine. But say you go swimming at the beach, and this stuff swims right up your nose. That's the fastest way to your brain. Basically what it does is it invades the central nervous system via the nose, and what it does is it causes necrosis and hemorrhaging of the nose, so you start bleeding like crazy. It's horrible, right? And your brain just starts to slowly shut down, and it basically attaches itself to your brain cells and just sucks them dry and causes you to become a shambling nothing. Just destroys you. So this is kind of a scary plague, right? Again, 144 people in the world have been stricken with this. So your odds aren't really great of dying of this. Now, here it is. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, VCJD. This is a variant prion. By the way, I gave a really, really good Discovery Channel or Discovery video on here. So if you guys get a chance to pop on the web at home, you can do some looking up what this fowleri does in action. And it's some creepy stuff. But again, better safe than zombie. So basically what it does, it leaves their victims violently insane, just like in 28 Days Later in Zombieland. It affects the structure of the brain, and it's completely untreatable, fatal in nearly 100% of the cases. And the scary part is, it's actually airborne. So this is not the same disease that's explained in the zombie autopsies. And I'll be very clear. Mr. Schlossman, Dr. Schlossman here, makes sure to let you know that this is similar to, but not the same. However, this disease causes everything from dementia to split personalities to just all kinds of mental illnesses, and then you become very violent and you just attack and you want to eat. That sounds very zombie-like to me. So that's kind of scary, right? And the real kicker is that one's airborne. So if somebody actually has it and you go in the room and they start coughing like crazy and you're not wearing a surgical mask, there's a good chance you could catch it. Normally it spreads through blood, and prions spread through blood and saliva. Now if a zombie attacks you by biting you and scratching you, and he's got cut up fingers, that makes a lot of sense. So when I said not yet, now you're getting the picture. Now you're getting why I'm like, I'm going to be ready for this. Now, do I want it to happen? Just let's be very clear on that. No, not at all. I do not want the zombie apocalypse to happen. Why? Because I am a 275-pound man. I am not a fast man. I'm a smart man, but I am not fast, and most of you would outrun me. If you became zombies and you were able to run, I'd be screwed.